It's a little after 2 in the morning, and you are standing on a dark street on the east side of Detroit, looking at a car that is about to stop being somebody else's. A red Camaro, Z28. Sitting at the curb under a busted streetlight, still ticking as the engine cools, the owner 3 floors up and fast asleep, dreaming that the thing he loves most in the world is right where he left it. It isn't. It's yours now. He just doesn't know it yet. You don't run. Running is what amateurs do. You walk up like you own it, because for the next 40 seconds you will, and then you're inside, and then you're gone. No alarm, no broken glass, no drama, just a red Camaro pulling smooth away from a curb and turning the corner like it's going out for cigarettes. 40 seconds to take it. And 8 minutes across town in a cinder block garage with no windows to make it disappear forever. A hood, a clip, a drivetrain, laid out clean on moving blankets in the order a buyer already paid for. By sunrise, there is no car. There's a swept floor, a coffee can full of keys, and a stack of hundreds that smells like gasoline. Some men move the country on their backs. You make it vanish. You are the reason a machine can roll off the face of the earth between last call and the morning shift, and leave nothing behind but a man on a curb, staring at an empty space, wondering if he dreamed the whole thing. You are very, very good at this. And this is your whole life. Out here in the dark, you're a king. There's no lock in the city you can't open, no year you can't start, no car you can't have inside a minute if somebody's paying for it. And there's no man alive who can do what comes after the way you do it. Take that hot car nobody could ever sell and turn it into 40 clean parts anybody can. 2 trades in 2 hands, the boost and the cut. Most men have one or the other, and they're afraid of you because you have both. And you're the youngest man in Detroit who does. You can feel a bad night coming 3 days out. You can smell a setup through a phone line. In 8 years, you have never spent a night in a cell, never left a name in anybody's mouth, never once walked into a garage that got hit the next morning. Out here, you matter. You've got a name that only travels in the right rooms, whispered, quiet. The ghost. But it wasn't always like this. 10 years back, you were nobody. A kid sweeping primer dust off another man's floor for minimum wage, breathing Bondo, going exactly nowhere in a city that was already dying under his feet. So let me take you back. Let me show you how an honest kid from a dead factory town became the best car thief in Detroit, and what it cost him, every dollar of it, to get this good, Hamtramck. A city inside the city, the Dodge main plant throwing its shadow across every street you ever played on. Your old man ran a body line there for 26 years, came home smelling of solvent and hot steel, hands stained to gray that never washed all the way out. And he was proud of it. Proud of a straight seam, a panel gapped just right, a fender you couldn't tell from the factory floor. He used to tell you a car was the closest thing a working man ever got to owning something beautiful. And he taught you to love them, taught you body work in the alley on Saturdays. The 2 of you bent over some wrecked Nova, and those were the best hours of your whole childhood. Then the 80s came, and everything your father believed in died in front of him. Dodge Main went down shift by shift. The foreign cars were better and cheaper, gas had spiked twice, and Detroit, loud, proud, roaring Detroit, was throwing men into the street by the thousand. Your father got his letter on a Tuesday. 26 years and a letter. He never really worked again. You'd watch him at the window, a proud man with beautiful hands, staring at a driveway that had no overtime left in it, and outside, the whole city was going the same way he was. This was the Detroit of Devil's Night. Whole blocks burning every October, the fire department just letting them go, the news calling your hometown the murder capital of America 2 years running. You grew up in a place that had started to eat itself. And you swore, standing in that dying city, you swore on everything, that you would never sit at a window and wait for a world that wasn't coming back. You would never wait for the letter. You'd take yours. In cash. In the dark. You did the honest thing first. You want that on the record. Took the body shop job, a real one. Straightening fenders for a boss who paid you half what your labor billed and pocketed the rest. 40 hours a week in Bondo dust for a check that couldn't cover a transmission. And you were good. Too good for what it paid. Then one night, a kid from the block you'd known since grade school, a booster, already at 19, leaned in and showed you something. Not told you, showed you. Took you out past midnight and put you in front of a car and walked you through it. Quiet, patient, 40 seconds, and then the two of you were rolling through empty streets in a machine that hadn't been yours when the hour started. And your heart was going like a hammer, and your blood was full of something you had never felt behind a sanding block. It wasn't only the money, though the money was insane. One night, one car, more than a month of honest work. It was that for 40 seconds you had been the most alive you had ever been in your life. You stood there after, shaking, grinning, terrified, and you felt the whole shape of your future bend like a frame, knocked off true. You knew exactly what it was. You knew which line you were stepping over, and that there'd be no stepping back across it. But you thought about your father at that window, waiting on a world that was finished with him, and you thought, not me, never me. So you said yes. And the city, which was busy burning itself to the ground, opened up in front of you like it had been waiting. The man who made you was called Sal. Old-timer. Been stealing and cutting cars since the 50s. Hands like a catcher's mitt and a memory like a parts catalog. He didn't teach just anybody. He watched you work a couple of times, watched how you moved, how you didn't panic, how you had the two gifts in the same set of hands. And he grunted, which from Sal was a diploma, and he took you on. He taught you the whole trade, both halves. How to read a street before you ever touched a car. Which windows had eyes behind them, which dog would bark, how long you really had, which was always less than you thought. How to take the right car and leave the wreck alone, because a Camaro or a Cutlass moved itself, but something rare just sat in a corner, glowing like a warrant. How to work fast, because speed is the only real safety there is. The less time a hot car spends whole, the less time it can put you in a cell. And the first rule, the last rule, the only one that ever really mattered. You never know a name you don't need. Not the buyers, not the boss above the boss, not the man who fronts the money. Kid, he told you one night, sweeping while the parts went cold on the blankets. The only thing that ever puts a man in a cage in this business is a name. Yours in somebody's mouth, theirs in yours. You carry nothing you can't set down and walk away from. Your first real envelope you held like it might not be real. More than your father cleared in a month, in your hand before dawn, warm. And right there, on a swept concrete floor that still smelled of the car that used to be standing on it, the life sank its hooks all the way in. You didn't feel them go. You never do. But you were already gone. They started calling you the ghost, because that's what the cars did around you. There one minute, gone the next, and never a thing left behind for anyone to find. And the ghost, it turned out, was an artist. You learned the whole automobile the way a surgeon learns a body. Every make, every model year. where the good parts hid, which lock gave and which fought, which alarm was real and which was a sticker on a window to scare children. You could stand across a parking lot and tell what was worth the walks. You built the system in your head and it never failed you. Which nights ran quiet, which streets the patrols worked and when, the exact rhythm from curb to corner that you never once broke. You worked to order now. A buyer wanted a particular car, a particular year, a particular color, and you would go and find that exact machine somewhere in the sprawl and bring it home and take it to pieces, all of it clean, all of it gone by morning. You had a web of them, buyers who never met each other, a salvage yard that asked nothing, a title man in Warren who could make a wrecked VIN sing a clean song, and you did it in the worst, most dangerous city in America, where every corner had a crew and half of them carried, where a beef over territory got a man shot behind a garage on the east side and nobody even called it in. You stayed clean through all of it. Fast hands, no gun, no name, no noise. Then came the one they still talk about, quiet in the right rooms. A collector's car, real money, real heat. Exactly the kind Sal taught you to leave in the corner. But the number they put on it could set you up for a year, and you were 26, and the young are sure the rules are for other men. You took it off a private drive in the time most men take to find their keys, and you had it apart before the owner's coffee was cold, and you got paid in a stack so thick you split it between both boots. That was the top of the mountain. 26 years old, a roll of cash, a name that opened every door that mattered, and a gift in your two hands that maybe 5 men in Detroit could touch. The honest kid sweeping primer was a story you told at bars now, laughing. You'd made it. You were the ghost. And a ghost, you were about to find out, is just a man who's already halfway gone and can't feel it yet. But the life takes its cut. It always takes its cut, and it takes it slow, so you don't notice till it's gone. First, it took your nerves. You couldn't hear a siren anymore without your gut dropping through the floor, not just working, but at a light, at a ball game, lying in bed at 4 in the morning listening to the city burn. Every police car in Detroit was, in some small way, hunting you specifically. You stopped sitting with your back to a door. You read every room before you walked all the way into it. Then it took the people around you. Guys you came up with started disappearing. A wheelman you'd run with did 5 years. A chop crew 2 streets over got hit and scattered. And one man you'd known since you were boys took 2 in the chest, behind a body shop over a territory nobody even really owned. And you went to the funeral and stood in the back and could not tell his mother one true thing about how her son had lived. Because you couldn't tell anybody anything. Not your own mother, who thought you had a good clean job and bragged on you at church. Not the woman you'd been seeing, who asked one too many times where the cash came from and then slowly, the way people do, stopped asking, decided she'd rather not know the man she was sleeping next to. You learned to lie so smooth you'd lose track of which story went with which face. And a man who can never, ever tell a living soul what he actually is, that man is alone in every crowded room he'll ever stand in. You had money in both boots, and not one person on this earth you could look in the eye and be real with. And the worst of it, the thing that sat on your chest at 4 a.m. You had your father's gift in your hands, his beautiful hands passed down, and you were using them in the dark to steal and to cut for men whose names you made sure you'd never know. The exact opposite of every straight seam that proud, ruined man ever taught you to love. Some nights, driving home with the cash under the seat and the city glowing orange in the mirror, you'd let yourself think about that for a second. And then you'd turn the radio up. Because a man cannot sit with a thought like that and keep going. So you didn't. It ended the way Sal always swore it would. Not with a chase, though God knows there'd been chases. Nights, the whole thing nearly came apart at 90 miles an hour down Gratiot, with a cruiser on your bumper and your heart in your mouth. Nights you climbed out after and threw up in an alley and went right back to work the next evening anyway. No, it didn't end with a chase. It ended with a name. A wheelman 2 counties over got picked up on something small, something stupid, and he was staring down real time. And it turned out the only thing he had left to sell was people. He didn't have your name. Sal's rule had held all the way up the line, thank God. The one thing that saved you. But he had a garage. He had a night. And on a Thursday morning in the spring, it all came down at once, the way it always does. Everything at the same hour, like the ground just opened up under the whole operation. A garage, a yard, the title man in Warren, gone, in a single morning. You weren't there. You want to know why? Because 3 nights before, something in the rhythm had gone wrong. A car that came too easy, a buyer too eager, a quiet on the street that sat wrong on your skin. And you listened to the things Sal spent 5 years burying in you. And you walked, left money on the table, and walked into the dark and didn't look back. It saved your life. It did not save Sal. They took the old man out of his own kitchen at 68 years old, and he never said one word, not one name, all the way down. Walked into a cell with his mouth shut, like the professional he'd been for 40 years, and he died in there 2 winters later, 1,000 miles from any street he'd ever worked. You couldn't visit, couldn't send a lawyer with your name on the check, couldn't do one single thing but read it small in the back of the Free Press and understand that the only man who ever really taught you anything was gone for a trade that the 2 of you already knew was dying anyway. You'd gotten away clean, and it felt exactly, precisely, like losing everything. Because here's the part nobody tells you. The trade was already ending, and no raid had anything to do with it. The world was changing, and nobody asked you, and nobody asked Sal. They passed a law in Washington in '84, and it sounded like nothing. Paperwork. Something that could never reach a man on a garage floor in Detroit. But here's what it meant out where the work was. They started stamping the numbers onto everything. Not just the dash and the block anymore. The hoods, the fenders, the doors, the whole most stolen list. Every major panel wearing its own brand straight from the factory. And a marked part is a part that talks. Overnight, the thing that made the whole trade breathe, that a door was just a door, a clean part anybody could buy, was dead. Now the door remembered exactly where it came from, and it would tell. Then the computers came. Police and insurance were putting the entire stolen country onto machines that talked to each other. A number flagged in Detroit lit up in Ohio by the afternoon. The salvage yards that used to ask nothing suddenly had a state inspector who could pull a full history in a minute flat. Out in California, they'd started hiding little radios in cars that would call out their own location to a cruiser the second they went hot. LoJack, a car that snitched on itself for a living. And then came the thing that finished it for good, the chip. The manufacturers started building the key itself smart. A little coded thing the car had to recognize or it would not turn over at all, no matter what you did to it. The 40-second boost, the thing your whole life was built on, was about to become impossible. You saw all of it coming the way you always could, 3 nights out. The buyers got scared first, then the money dried, then it just vanished. The good yards went straight or went under. A marked, computerized, self-reporting, chip-locked world had quietly and permanently decided that a man like you, fast hands, no name, a ghost in the dark, was a thing it had no more room for anywhere. There was no enemy left to outrun. There never is. Just the law and a database and a market that had bolted the door on the only thing you ever knew how to do. So you did the one thing you swore on your father's ruin you would never do. You went and got the letter yourself, before the world could hand it to you. You took the cash out of your boots, a lot less than a life should add up to, the way it always is. And you walked into a legitimate collision shop way out in the clean suburbs, and you asked a stranger for a job, straightening fenders, insurance work. The exact honest trade you'd run from 10 years before, for half of what the labor billed, breathing Bondo dust, for a boss who kept the rest, all the way back to the start. Worse than the start with 10 years behind you that you could never put on any application. 10 years you'd have to lie about for the rest of your natural life. And the strange thing, the thing you never once saw coming, you were the best man that shop ever had. Of course you were. Nobody read a frame like you. Nobody matched a panel truer or moved faster over a wounded car. Customers started asking for you by name, the clean name, the straight one. You'd fix some family's station wagon after a fender bender and hand the woman back her keys, and she'd thank you like you'd done something decent. And you had. You'd finally used your father's gift the way he always meant it, out in the daylight on machines you gave back. 20 years too late, and dead quiet inside, and honest. You never told a soul. You still haven't. You just clock in, and you fix the cars the world wants fixed, and you leave the ghosts buried out on the east side under a swept concrete floor, with every beautiful machine you ever made disappear in the dark. Walk through a shop today. Go ahead. It's bright now, ventilated, a computer at every bay, and every single car that rolls through the door is an informant. There's a chip in the key, a chip in the fob, a chip in the wiring that phones the factory every mile it turns. Every major part wears a number, and half of them wear a second one you can't even see. Etched in the glass, sprayed invisible into the paint. Try to move a hot car 3 blocks in this city now, and a camera up on a pole reads the plate, checks a database, and flags a cruiser before you make the light. No boost. No ghost. No 40 seconds in the dark. Even the catalytic converter, the one last thing worth stealing off a car, they laser engrave now, so the scrap itself remembers where it lived. Your own insurance company bolted a little box under your dash that watches how hard you brake and how fast you take the on-ramp and sets your rate to the penny for the privilege of being watched. The car knows where it is. The car knows everywhere it's been. And the car will, the instant it's asked, tell on you. There is no dark left to work in anywhere. Nothing vanishes anymore. Not a car, not a part, not a man. And every so often you'll be up late flipping channels, and you'll land on one of those auctions, the fancy ones, the lights and the crowd, and the auctioneer's song, and there it'll be. A red 79 Camaro Z28, restored to better than the factory ever built it, every number matching, every panel true. And some doctor in the 3rd row will pay 6 figures for it and drive it twice a year, and he will never know, could never know, what a car exactly like that one was worth, on a garage floor at 2 in the morning, taken off a curb in 40 seconds and cut into 40 clean parts by a kid who was very, very good in a city and a trade and a whole world that does not exist anymore. You were an artist. and nobody was ever allowed to know your name. So here's the question, friend, and only you can answer it. Was it worth it? All those hard miles in the dark, the nerves that never came back all the way, the people you could never once be honest with, right to the end. The boy you buried in the back of a funeral, and the old man who walked into a cell with his mouth shut and died there for a trade that was already dying. Your father's gift, his beautiful hands, used up in a place he could never have borne to look at. Knowing every bit of it, every night, every curb, every siren, would you do it again? And here's the terrible thing, the thing you'd never say out loud to a living soul. Some nights, you're honestly not sure you wouldn't, because you were never any good at waiting for the letter. And for 8 years, in a windowless room that smelled of gasoline and cutting oil, with the fastest hands in the worst city in America, and no name at all in the whole sleeping world never once knowing you were there, you were, God help you, well, the best in the world at something. That has to count, doesn't it? This was your life, the whole of it. The honest and the dark, the beautiful hands and the buried name. The 40 seconds that made you feel alive and the 40 years you'll spend never telling anyone why. And nobody, not your father, not the law, not the doctor with the red Camaro under the lights, nobody will ever really know you were here at all.
Yellow lines are fading in the rearview mirror now. This ancient highway has quieted its roar. I've driven through the shadows of the only life I knew, and I won't be returning anymore. So farewell to the endless sky and dust upon the breeze, to every town that whispered in the night. The open road is folding like a map of memories, and fading out of sight. Just a single quiet guitar. Goodbye to the road.